The Laura Ingraham Show.
Raymond's always like, oh, yeah, I'm going away for a few days. Then it's like 3 weeks later, he comes back.
Oh, come on.
You are just never stay put. This is Raymond.
I never stay put.
This is what I haven't traveled in like 2 months.
Oh, you haven't traveled in like 2 minutes. Give me a break.
No, you always say.
Their trunks are always packed on the front stoop at the Ingraham house.
What, are you going back to
yes, it's like
steamer trunks?
Yeah, well, since we're playing in the money, you know, there you are with like your hat. You got the hat with the children running around and the valets carrying your trunks.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's more like falling down the stairs with my roller bag that I've had for 14 years. I can't get one of those roller bags. I want that Ricardo roller bag that I have, and I cannot find them. They don't make them anymore.
You gave me one for Christmas.
I want to buy yours.
You know what? If you're very nice to me, I'll give it back to you. Now, how's that? What kind of Christmas present is that when you demand it back? Yes, I use it when I travel.
Do you use
it
a lot?
Places that you
I love that bag. I gave you that bag. I gave Cipollone that bag, and I can't pry it out of Cipollone's hands. Raymond always travels with those old-fashioned suit bags. You know, duvets. And he's always having a fight with the lady at LAX. They are
No.
They
it's
are
not
luggage
the lady.
Nazis.
It's the Sky Valets.
Oh,
who are just not. These aren't the red caps that take your bag.
What's their role there?
Sky Valets are fraudulent airline employees who are the front line for the TSA.
Before the TSA.
These are the people who, frankly, their IDs should be checked to gain access to the airport. And they're checking they're looking at my ticket like, let me see your ticket.
Let me see your ticket.
Wait a minute.
Your ticket, no, your bag is too big. Your bag too big.
I said, oh no, it fits easily in overhead. I just walk past it. No, come back.
No, come back. And then there's a line of people going, oh, how about me? Raymond has this thing going, I can't understand you. I can't understand you. Every time I say, Raymond, you are not getting that bag through the Sky Valet Nazis.
Time.
You do get it in. And the best is they have that little thing, that little box, and they say, if your bag doesn't fit in this box, you can't check it in the overhead. If the bag doesn't fit in the box, that bag wouldn't fit into that box if you blew it up and then shoved it in 10,000 pieces. Thing is huge. How did we get off? We're supposed to be talking about this rosy jobs report, and instead we're talking about our travel woes. Anyway, it's good to see you around.
Good to see you.
But imagine how it would feel if Hillary Clinton were president right now. I keep all the complaints about Trump. Oh, they didn't roll this out. They wrote a Karl Rove's piece in the Wall Street Amateur Hour in the White House. Oh, okay, Carl, tell us how well it went in the Bush administration when your guy left with a 35% approval rating. But it's Amateur Hour in the White House. Yeah, they've had some issues they could have handled better. Fine. But imagine if Hillary were president, we would be beyond depressed right now. I mean, I'm kind of over this gray weather, but we would be depressed beyond depressed. And I will just say one other thing. I don't do well on the injured reserve. I do not do well on this injured. By the way, I'm going to take a picture. Drew, take a picture of this boot that my is a podiatrist even a doctor?
Wait a minute.
Is a podiatrist a doctor?
Yes,
or is that like a fake doctor?
No, he's a foot doctor. It's not like a chiropractor.
I mean, I've been going to him for maybe 20 years.
Well, that explains a lot.
Well, he's a great guy. But look at this boot. Look at this boot.
What is this for?
This is for my stress fracture. You need to be
Wait a minute.
You need to be a PhD at Stanford for mechanical engineering to understand how to put this boot on.
You can walk on the moon with that.
There's a pump. Look at this pump thing.
I see that. It's
There's
very
a pump.
elaborate.
There's like 50,000 Velcro straps. There's an interior tongue thing that sticks out. I've tried for a day, and then the directions.
How bad is the foot?
The directions are written in hieroglyphics. I have readers, and I don't even want to admit that because I never use the readers. I had to pull out the readers. I still can't read the directions. They have them in Farsi. They have in Mandarin, Italian. I can't even find the English.
But back up.
Look at this thing.
Tell the story from the beginning.
Well,
you're going to the boot. I need to know what presaged the boot.
I have a stress fracture. Underline the word stress. If you know
I
what
got
I mean.
a stress fracture right now. Just
gonna
listening.
have a I'm just teasing.
In my ear.
Look at this. It's right on the outside of my ankle.
From what?
Overuse. Overuse. That's what it's called. Overuse of
running.
Running.
I'm surprised you don't have a tongue fracture at this point. All you do is run around with Hannity, and Hannity's going to make you a co-host at this point. I'm going to call. We should try Sean.
Can I go on any more days a week?
And ask him if I demand you. I demand a
credit.
Co-host credit at this point.
I want something. I want some credit. But this. Have you ever had a stress fracture? Pete, have you? Pete standing in the other room. Pete just likes to come in here and lord over us.
My bones are very, very strong.
Pete's like the dad coming in to see if everything's okay. Because he knows when I'm injured.
Somebody needs to make sure everything's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Pete's coming in here. Pete's the chairman of LifeZet. So LifeZet's through the glass. We see all the hum of activity through the glass. got to get a camera in here.
needs
Are
to be
people
an
even
adult in the
doing
room.
anything in life?
Yes. Thank
Who's
God, once
working over
arrived.
there? There's like 3 people in there.
They're cranking away.
Oh yeah, please. I'm just
Stress
joking.
fractures are terrible because it takes a long time to heal, particularly the foot. I had them from playing hockey, and it takes forever to heal.
It's
so
on
you
my-
gotta, and you won't relax. Or
I
wear
need
the
you
boot.
to. I need you to. Can I give you the directions to this boot because I cannot figure
I'll
out.
assemble a team.
Okay, no. Yeah, that's impressive. Like, how many LifeZet reporters does it take to figure out the instructions?
we
That's a
might- we
tongue
might-
depressor,
we might
that
need some
thing in
help.
there. That's you put that in the mouth and then the boot.
Here's the instructions. We'll take a picture of this.
Oh, my
I can't
Lord.
find the English part.
Here's what I want to know.
Here,
How
take
much
this.
does this set you back? This is like, you can tell this is like an
boot-
$800
Oh yeah, you know
purchase.
this boot, and it rocks your feet. Then they give you a pad. Look at this.
John Glenn wore
Wait,
this, by the
look
way,
at
in
this sucker.
1969.
Look at this sucker. They give you a heel pad for your. Yeah, that Pete just held up a sign that we can't read. They give you this little felt thing to put in your
Oh,
other
that's gonna
shoe
help.
because you're going to be uneven wearing the rocker boot. I feel like
We should put
This
a
is
video
just-
team on her
This is
for
the
the
video.
weekend.
Can I say
just
something?
to watch her wobble down the
no,
street.
but this is my right foot.
Then
Can you
she'll fall
imagine
and
me on the
break a
gas
leg.
pedal with this thing? I can't wear it in the
I don't know
car.
would there be much of a difference.
I can't wear this in the car. This rocker boot. Okay, this thing will. I'll be sitting in the car in front of me. I'll be living in his trunk very quickly after I get this boot on my gas
Ingram,
pedal. Okay.
you're starting a fashion trend,
This
I
is
think.
an argument for the driverless car.
Yes.
No, but I'm telling you, I can't deal with being injured. And then the doctor.
Oh, he
Do you
wrote you
think
a
it's a
letter.
little
Oh, can
odd?
I read the letter?
But
Please.
Okay. Look at it.
What
It's
is that, written in
handwritten. This
pencil?
isn't. Yeah,
he
pencil.
wrote a little letter. It's
a letter handwritten. It's
cast
called-
boot. Here it is. Cast boot. Wear it at all times except sleeping, bathing. If you use that foot for driving and during airplane flights, the cabin pressure will make the boot expand.
Because of the pump.
Because of that pump.
It's the Reebok pump.
Oh no, this is. But I love that he has to tell you that you shouldn't wear it when you're sleeping or bathing.
Oh,
well,
thanks.
thanks, Doc. The boot should always feel comfortable, not too tight or too loose. You should always have some movement in your toes and ankles. Making the boot too tight.
Do you think he would have printed this out and given it? Presumably, he's diagnosed stress fractures before.
Right.
This is a
should be a
handwritten
form.
note he wrote me. You think this would just be something he's already done before? I'm checking his degree. Where do you think he came
wait,
from?
there's instruction for walking here, Ingram. Pay attention.
Left,
Okay.
right,
Strike,
left, right. Or?
strike with your heel first. Come down flat, and then lift up the foot 1 inch off the ground. Do not try to bend the boot foot at toes.
Ben, you
The
couldn't
boot
bend
foot.
this.
You now have a boot foot.
You couldn't bend this thing with a
Tried-
vice that they use for monster trucks.
Yeah, I got to tell you, this thing really looks like a Buick on your foot, and I love this note.
He must have had these left over from prior.
Try to
These
keep.
are
like a Star Wars
discontinued.
costume.
These are discontinued.
Boris Karloff wore that in the movie. Try to keep your gait as normal as possible.
I don't think so.
Oh, but you can add your orthodontic insoles. That'll help you. The
I haven't done
orthotic
that.
insoles will help cushion your boot.
My heel feels like someone smashed it with a baseball bat at the bottom. That's
No,
what
wait,
my.
you didn't read these instructions. I,
didn't.
know you didn't because
It's been sitting in the bottom
otherwise,
of my purse.
because the boot comes off the ground maybe 5 inches. Okay, and here's the note on your non-injured foot. Now we're not writing a script; we're writing in block letters. The doctor is. Wear a shoe of the same height to reduce discomfort on your knees, hips,
Because
back.
my left leg is hurting now. My right leg is the injured one, but I need a heel shoe for that other side.
These can be purchased on Amazon. What do you buy, Frankenstein shoes? This is.
Oh, no, this
just
is a-
let the fracture go on. That's what I say.
No, we're going to take a break. Has anyone ever had this issue, and does the boot actually work? I mean, I'm just going to get crutches. I should just get a pair of crutches. It's not going to work. I can't do it. I was cursing
Can
this
you
thing
see
this
the
morning.
motorized wheelchair?
We need a motorized
Or a
wheelchair.
rascal.
You need a
With a
rascal
cigarette.
and a cigarette in a hand.
And one of those big old fried turkey
Cigarette
legs that
or
they
a
have
big
it-
gulp, a big
By the
gulp.
way, when we come back, the
Oh.
boycotters are out. They're boycotting Ivanka's shoe line, handbag line, dress line. And Raymond because Raymond is a devotee of Disney. Raymond, you have an update from the Hall of Presidents?
This is a tragedy of
Okay, we don't want to give it away.
epic proportion.
It involves our new president and the animatronic speaking that would happen if things were he was being treated fairly at Disney. What are the Disney protesters all about? Drew, look up Rascal Scooter for someone of my weight, girth, and height. Okay, I just might go into. I might go full rascal. We'll take a break. Don't go away. Purse, handbag. Yeah, the handbag, the dresses, the shoes, sold at a variety of retailers. My favorite, TJ Maxx, carries Ivanka Trump, but also DSW Shoe House, many other things, Kohl's, Nordstrom's. And before we get to the Disney story, Nordstrom is dropping Ivanka Trump-branded clothing and shoes. Isn't that interesting? Because they have all the retail places are doing so well, they need to cause trouble with the Trump voters. Nordstrom representative said that the Ivanka Trump products were being dropped because of poor sales. Statement didn't mention the boycott effort called Grab Your Wallet, which had been demanding that the department store giant cease doing business with the president or his family. Each year we cut about 10% of brands and refresh our assortment with the same amount, according to Nordstrom's. In this case, based on the brand's performance, we decided not to buy it for this season. I'm sure it's just a coincidence. But look, people can buy whatever they want to buy or have their boycotts.
Here's the question.
It's their choice. They can do whatever they want.
There's also a boycott of Tesla where people are returning their Teslas because the founder of the company dared to meet with President Trump a few weeks ago.
This is how intolerant these people are.
Well, this is my question. How far should a boycott go? I understand if you're boycotting a company's investments, like in Planned Parenthood or in things you disagree with, but a CEO meeting the head of the U.S. government,
remember what they did to Steve Harvey? Remember what they did to Steve Harvey, what they said about him? They trashed him.
And Jennifer Hudson.
I mean, the only thing that these little bullies understand is to get hit back with frankness. A no-holds-barred response, which is, we're not violent, unlike you people. We don't smash windows. We get results. Success is always the best revenge. Be successful, do a great job, ignore all of this chaos to the extent that you can. I mean, there's some things you can't ignore because you have to put people in jail. But as far as the boycotts, they're going to do what they can do. Just keep moving forward. But what happened at Disney, Raymond?
Okay.
What happened at Disney?
Well, in Disney, there is a long tradition where the new president, whoever he or she might be, is installed as an animatronic figure, a robotic figure. And they normally go to the president, really, since Reagan. They have gone to the president and recorded an address that is then played via this robot in the Hall of the Presidents. This is President Obama, for instance.
What do you say, frog, looking
Laura
up at
said,
the rock?
Is that Maya Angelou? I said, yeah, it's Maya Angelou.
Oh, no, that was a bore. No, I couldn't take that.
So then at the end, after they go through a pageant of American history, the curtain goes up and there are all the presidents. And then the current president stands and gives a speech. Well, there is now a petition that reads, he has tainted the legacy of the American presidency forever. Speaking of Donald Trump, the Magic Kingdom at Disney is a place specifically designed for the enjoyment of children and families. Therefore, it is not appropriate to place Donald Trump in a speech in an attraction. We ask Walt Disney World, take a stand against this divisive and hurtful rhetoric.
So Walt would be all in favor of this, right? Walt would have loved this. Is Clinton, because Clinton was good for children.
Clinton spoke.
Clinton introduced a lot of new concepts to children, right? So he definitely deserved to have his voice in the Hall of Presidents who got him, who basically, got impeached.
So the question is, is this a valid petition?
All right. He had a machete, and they say he's still alive. It does seem strange that you could be alive after 5 shots to the stomach. The French Prime Minister described the attack as terrorist in nature. A second person has been arrested, but not known if at this point if they were linked to the attack. The identity and nationality of the attacker has not yet been released. We'll bring you updates on this as we know it. The terror probe has been launched. Donald Trump has already tweeted about it, saying a new radical Islamic terrorist has just attacked. In Paris, tourists were locked down. France on the edge again. Get smart, U.S. ! So that's from Trump this morning. We have news on Russia. Very, very interesting development on Russia as Nikki Haley, the new UN ambassador, yesterday spoke out. We'll tell you what she said and a lot more. Joining us now is Alexander Vershbow, who is the former American ambassador to Russia and NATO, former Deputy Secretary General of NATO, and he joins us now on the issue of sanctions and perhaps changes in our relationship with Russia. Trump has said, he doesn't know much about Putin, but he'd rather have a better relationship with countries if possible. But he said he doesn't know if it's possible with Russia. Здравствуйте, как дела? Hi, Alexander. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm very well. Do you speak Russian?
Да, говорю по-русски немножко.
Немножко, без акцента. I hear the немножко part. That's okay. When I saw your name, I said, okay, is Alexander Russian? Then we can really have some fun on the air. Really confusing people with our Russian. Let's talk, Alexander, about there seems to be a divide in the policy right now in the Trump administration. There seems to be a number of individuals in the West Wing, and perhaps the president himself, who moving toward perhaps having a more positive relationship with Russia going forward. And then Nikki Haley, and we'll play the sound for you. Nikki Haley said this yesterday.
I consider it unfortunate that the occasion of my first appearance here is one in which I must condemn the aggressive actions of Russia. It is unfortunate because it is a replay of far too many instances over many years in which United States representatives have needed to do that. It should not have to be that way. We do want to better our relations with Russia. However, the dire situation in eastern Ukraine is one that demands clear and strong condemnation of Russian actions.
Well, Trump didn't really address this clearly during the campaign, but there was concern from a lot of neoconservatives and I think traditionalists in foreign policy, a lot of the people who condemned Trump in their letter, the foreign policy elites. So what's going on here?
Well, first of all, I think that what Nikki Haley said was spot on, just right in stressing that it is certainly in our interest to try to improve relations with Russia. And in that sense, the president's instincts aren't in any way to be criticized. The question is, how do you go about that? Do you basically sweep under the carpet the big problems Russia has created over the last couple of years, most notably the aggression against Ukraine, for the sake of partnership on fighting ISIS or other things? Or do you continue to insist that Russia live up to its own commitments, get out of Ukraine, and come back into compliance with the rules of the game in Europe? If we don't insist on that, we're just asking for trouble down the road, and maybe even new wars in Europe. Remember, 10,000 Ukrainians have died over the last 2.5 years, even as Russia denies that its troops are even in there. So you can't get off on a relationship with this kind of huge issue dividing us, and I think Nikki Haley spelled out exactly what needs to be done.
What exactly would our reaction be if Russia continues to be aggressive, as all the reports coming out of the region indicate that they are, inside of Ukraine? Shelling, we're getting tweets from people there. I think they haven't heard this level of shelling in months. And let's say Vladimir Putin thinks there's an opening for him to go into Lithuania or Latvia or any of the other former Eastern Bloc countries that may seem vulnerable because of their economic condition or other Russian propaganda inside the country working in Putin's favor. America, at that point, in your estimation, should do what?
Well, first of all, we need to maintain the sanctions that were imposed over what they did in Ukraine as a way of discouraging them, deterring them from doing any more damage. And I think the sanctions, while they haven't by themselves led Russia to reverse its course, they have, I think, prevented them from going even farther into other parts of Ukraine and maybe other neighbors where they do also harbor some territorial ambitions. At the same time, we have to maintain the strengthening of NATO that has been carried out over the last 2.5 years, including the decision to put some rotating troops into the Baltic states, into Poland, so that Russia doesn't even think about some sort of gambit like they pulled off in Crimea. And of course, they have to reckon with the fact that now they won't just run into Latvians and Lithuanians and Estonians, they'll run into Americans, Germans, British, Canadian forces. So I think it's unlikely that they'll attack Lithuania or Latvia, as you suggest. But they could go after Belarus, so they could have another war with Georgia.
And what
thing is we have.
Yeah, Alexander. I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I lived in the Soviet Union and traveled to most of these former Eastern Bloc countries. So I have no warm feelings toward Putin. Believe me, given what he's done to even the orphans in his country. But I think what the voters said in this election is when they were supporting Trump, is that other nations have to start picking up more of the responsibility in the region. And sanctions are one thing, but when Angela Merkel and former German leaders have fairly cozy relationships with Putin themselves, a lot of it because of the economic ties with the Nord Stream pipeline and now the new pipeline that's being negotiated to come into a different part of Europe, there's a lot of money on the line for these Pauls and former Pauls. And it would seem to me that the leadership in this area can't just come from the United States. Yeah. And I don't see any great expansion of America's leadership when Barack Obama was in power. In fact, it seems like Europe got cozier to Russia.
Well, I don't think the picture is quite that dark, as you suggest. I mean, yes, the Europeans need to spend more on defense. They need to do more on their side to make NATO strong. And I think we've seen some movement on that. As I said, it's Germans, Brits, and Canadians are taking the lead in reinforcing the Baltic states. The U.S. isn't doing it all.
But why? Okay. But reinforcing the Baltic states as they make Russia a huge amount of money with the pipeline, right? They want that energy. That pipeline was a key move that, frankly, very few journalists in the United States even understand what I'm talking about, but I actually know this region. There is a huge money play for a lot of these big businesses in Europe and former government officials. And I think a lot of these banks are involved, holding a lot of this cash, Credit Suisse and all these other banks. And there's a lot of money that's exchanged hands to facilitate Russia's economic ties to Western Europe. And so if we're going to be really honest about the region, they have facilitated the Putin economic march into the region. They facilitated it. They needed the energy. They wanted cheaper access to energy, and they got it. And they're going to get more of it with this other pipeline. That's my focus on that point.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, if you look back at the previous German Chancellor, Gerhard Schroeder.
Yeah, who was at his 70th birthday party. Putin was at his 70th birthday party, or vice versa.
Yeah, he's on the payroll of Gazprom. Yeah. And this Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which is still being discussed, hasn't been fully approved, would be a major gift to Putin and also a major blow to Ukraine in terms of depriving it of whatever little leverage it still has against Russia. But I think on the positive side, the Europeans have actually given up more in terms of business and deals with Russia by complying with the sanctions than the U.S. has, and they are quite determined to stick with it. And even German businesses now recognize that sometimes principle comes ahead of profits. So it isn't perfect. There's still mixed signals coming out of Europe. Some countries are desperate to get rid of the sanctions, but on the whole, Merkel has been much more of a realist about Putin than her predecessors or many other European leaders. And the key is, if you really want to deal effectively with Russia, you have to be united. So I think that what Nikki Haley said, what we've heard from Tillerson and Mattis, is on the right path. Work with the Europeans, come up with a unified approach to Russia, offer Russia a way forward in terms of better relations, but they have to do things for us that.
So you don't think we should work with Russia at all against Islamic terrorism?
No, I think we should if we can find a basis to do it.
Yeah, we want to kill all those people in ISIS. So do they. That's the basis of working together.
Well, that's what they say they do, but in fact, they've been mainly killing all the opposition to Assad that's still surviving.
Well, we're not going down the regime change road again, are we? I mean, Alexander, we're going to go back to the Bush era of regime change or what Obama did, because that all worked out really well for us in the Middle East. I mean, we got rid of all these bad guys. And now we have a massive migration crisis all throughout Western Europe.
The problem in Syria is that Obama was unable to get rid of the bad guy, and that's why we have all these refugees and the spread of ISIS over to North Africa. So Syria is a black hole. I'm not sure the Russians have made it a lot better by their intervention. But yes, if we can find a basis to work with them against ISIS, I'm all for it.
What about China? I mean, we focus so much on the Middle East and, in this case, Russia. James Webb Jr. wrote a piece in LifeSet today, or a couple days ago. The Russian thaw is key to countering China's rise. The last thing the United States wants to do, in my estimation, is to draw Russia and China closer together. We do not need another Russo-Sino alliance against the West, against U.S. interests. China's enriched itself at our expense and violated so many trade agreements that we know what they're doing in international waters now. So why wouldn't a closer relationship with Russia benefit us on the China side of the equation?
It could do that, but we have to reckon with the fact that right now there already is a kind of Russia-China alliance. So the question is, will the Russians be prepared to give that up or even weaken it for the sake of cooperation with the U.S.? I'm not actually sure that's the case. We should see whether we can get the Russians to work on things that help us, and if possible, to lean on the Chinese to rein in Kim Jong-un in North Korea, because the Chinese aren't doing that. But it may not be so simple. I think Putin values the relationship with China. They get support of China in the UN Security Council and in other fora. They're a big market for their defense equipment, for energy. So Putin may not be so easily seduced into breaking with China. But we have to have sophisticated diplomacy, at least distance Russia from China on some issues, give ourselves some more maneuvering room so we can counter the destabilizing activity of China, such as the...
Hey, Alexander, you didn't sign that anti-Trump letter about all the really smart foreign policy people who are now trying to work in the administration, by the way. You didn't sign that letter, right?
No, I was still a NATO civil servant.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. So a lot of those same people are wondering, gosh, we really need to get jobs in the administration. Like, maybe you shouldn't have signed the letter. That's so stupid. I told these people, so many of them were emailing me, I feel like I'm on the fence about signing this letter. I said, you're just going to hurt yourself. I don't understand. Why would you sign that stupid letter? And now they're all wishing they had jobs in the administration. So I don't understand that. Hey, Alexander, we really appreciate your joining us for a different perspective on this. Alexander Vershbow, former American ambassador in Russia and Deputy Secretary General of NATO. Thank you so much for your perspective. We're going to take a break on the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. The boycotts have started. Should we care? And violence again breaks out last night in New York City at another protest as Islamic terror has come back to Paris. We'll tell you more when we come back. What is this trend of pregnant women, Raymond? On the one hand, I like the fact that this is all about life and life affirming, so that's all really cool, because usually it's just about a choice and it's not a baby. So in this case, it's great. They're having children. It's a family, and it's a husband and wife having children. It's lovely. It's beautiful. And she seems to just loves her kids, and I think that's great. She's a beautiful girl. She has a lot of talent. Putting politics aside, obviously she's very close to the Obamas and so forth. But now there's the big photo spread of her family pregnancy photo album, where she's naked, pregnant. I guess it's all just the look at me, I'm exposed. I don't get it. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. We know what a pregnant belly looks like. That's great. But it's going back to the Demi Moore. Remember when she did that Vanity Fair cover when she was pregnant? And that was back in the 90s, I believe. And that started the trend, I think, with pregnant women being on the cover of magazines. Yep. And then she had like that. Didn't she? Yeah, she just had she was totally naked.
She was naked on the cover of Vanity Fair.
And then
from the side.
Yeah, now it's the same thing. Beyonce's naked and has twins, and then she has a picture of her baby kissing her little girl, kissing her stomach, that's cute. But it reminds me of all the things we see at these award shows. With now, it's the neckline plunging doesn't begin to describe the necklines. Now it's how close can you get to the nipple without a nip slip in the dresses? It's the Scotch tape or whatever the fabric tape is, that must be doing really well lately because it is a feat of
double-sided tape.
Yeah, it is a feat of extraordinary accomplishment to be able to keep that fabric right in that position, regardless of how much side-to-side movement these people who are handing out the awards do. Because you imagine you have to just not move your chest muscles at all, and just move side to side. And
ridiculous.
But it's too much. Or do you think this is a beautiful thing? I mean, Lady Gaga's going to be performing at the Super Bowl, by the way.
We are going to get to that.
Yeah, she's performing, and she's, she has her monsters. Her audience is called her monsters, my little monsters.
She is promising a message of inclusion and diversity in a country that is divided. And apparently they're wheeling out old Tony Bennett. He's going to be doing the intro of Lady Gaga.
They've done the...
Ladies and gentlemen, Lady Gaga!
Hey, Tony. Hey, Gaga.
Oh, my God.
Hey, Tony.
No meat dress this time, though, she's promising. No meat dress.
No meat, but I predict she'll go very classic. That's how it's going to be classic. And then, like her predecessors, she will gradually strip down to the S&M outfit at the end. That's my prediction. But maybe not. Maybe she'll go totally... She's done that thing where she's gone very 40s chic in the past. So maybe maybe Gaga's not going to do that. But they've got two topics on the table. The Super Bowl halftime show, they've run out of ideas. Let's face it. They've gone through the Rolling Stones. They went through Paul McCartney. All the big, the rock and roll's dead. There is no rock and roll anymore. It's for the most part dead. No. It's just the old bands that are still.
Probably did the best recent.
Bruno Mars, who's
until Beyonce showed up and did that. He was pretty good.
He's fine.
I have to say Prince did a pretty good job with the halftime show.
Well, Prince is real rock and roll.
Exactly.
I mean, that was real rock and roll.
1991.
Yeah, Purple Rain. They bring out all the oldies because they're the only ones who can fill a stadium for the most part.
So now they're bringing out the really oldie, 90-year-old Tony Bennett introducing Lady Gaga.
Hey, Gaga, everyone.
I know you spoke about kind of taking this moment to unify America a little bit. Are you going to do that at all? Are you going to make any kind of statements during the performance?
Well, I don't know if I will succeed in unifying America. You'll have to ask America when it's over. But the only statements that I'll be making during the halftime show are the ones that I have been consistently making throughout my career. I believe in a passion for inclusion. I believe in the spirit of equality and the spirit of this country as one of love and compassion and kindness.
That's what the Convent of the Sacred Heart private school in New York gets you.
Okay, here's my question. Are you going to allow your children to stay in the room during Lady Gaga's halftime show?
Oh, yeah, mine aren't. Mine are always... We rerun the Puppy Bowl during the halftime show. I can't wait for the Puppy Bowl. It's on Animal Planet. They were Fox and Friends. Those people have the best gig during Super Bowl weekend. All the Fox and Friends hosts.
To go down there.
I was offered tickets to go to the Super Bowl. I wouldn't go to this. It is the last thing I would want to travel to go to. People are like, are you going? I said, I gave my tickets away. I had no desire to go to the Super Bowl. Zero. I mean, I didn't even go to the national championship, the Alabama thing, because it's just, I'd rather watch it on television.
So who
oftentimes.
Are you pulling for?
It's a hard one for me.
I know, because I know you love Tom Brady.
Well,
very close to him.
Pretty Boy, well, see, he's kind of like Trump. So now Pretty Boy is in my... He's getting into my good graces because he does like Trump. Contrary to what his wife tried to tell the world, he loves Trump. Okay, they're friends. Bob Kraft is friends with Trump. Okay? Bob Kraft was on Fox and Friends this morning, and he's the owner of the Patriots. I sat next to him at dinner couple weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago. Couldn't have been a nicer guy, by the way, Kraft. He's just an old New England, personality, and he was talking about how Trump, when his wife died, his wife of 40 plus years, passed away several years ago now. What Trump did as far as reaching out to him for an entire year.
Well, over 20 years ago, we've been friends, and I never really did business, but just had a personal relationship, and he's been great to me over those last 2 decades. And I had the privilege of going to Melania and his wedding, and in the toughest time in my life, he was there for me when my beloved wife died. five and a half years ago, and he came to the funeral with Melania. He visited me at my home Memorial Week. He called me once a week for a year. How you doing? I was really depressed, and he invited me to things, and he looked out after me.
Well, he is that kind of person. I mean, he really is. I mean, he does that for people. And that's a side of Donald Trump that a lot of people don't know. I do know that side of Trump. And it's nice for Kraft. Probably is a Democrat. I don't know. I mean, independent. I'm sure he probably voted for Trump. But, you know, he was devastated. You know who else helped him get through that year? Tom Brady. Two of them are best friends. Tom Brady views Bob Kraft as a father figure, and they're extremely close. And I mean, Tom Brady wouldn't still be at the Patriots if it weren't for Bob Kraft. But he wanted to build his legacy as perhaps the best quarterback of all time. And if he wins the Super Bowl on Sunday, I don't see how anyone comes close to him as the best quarterback of all time. But who I want to win, that's a long-winded way of saying the Patriots. But it gets boring when the Patriots win all the time.
Everybody, I say this.
That's why
year.
Everyone wanted the Cowboys.
Right.
They wanted the Cowboys, and those ticket sales dropped after the Cowboys.
Right. Because everybody's been beaten by the Patriots, every individual team. So you don't want to root for them because they bulldoze everybody. Yeah. But I am. This is a little like.
Well, you're New Orleans.
This is a little like Thomas Jefferson versus
we got
Aaron
an
Burr.
Alabama player on the Falcons.
This is like Thomas Jefferson versus Burr. You have to make a decision. You don't like either, but as a Saints fan, I will never and can never support the Dirty Birds. So I'm with the Patriots.
You hate the Falcons.
I cannot stand the Atlanta.
I don't
Falcons.
Like Atlanta teams
They're like
at all.
mortal
I'm
enemies.
sorry, I don't like
New
Atlanta
Orleans.
teams. I never have. Didn't like the Braves.
I like Atlanta. I just don't like
Hotlanta.
the Dirty Birds.
Julio Jones.
Julio Jones, Laura. That's what you're thinking of.
Well, he played
great wide receiver. Yes.
He played when you were at Alabama.
Yes, I was at Alabama. Well, when you're living in Alabama, you don't have a pro football team. You don't have a pro basketball team. So your closest team is usually Atlanta Falcons, especially when you're in Birmingham. It's only 2 hours away.
Did you say especially?
What?
Especially? Especially. Okay. I like to tease you, Drew. But Drew likes. I
like the Falcons. Matt Ryan's a great guy. He's from Georgia. Very hardcore conservative. You'll like that about it.
Yeah, Jones is trying to.
I don't want to politicize my sports. I don't want politicized
Jones
sports.
wants to wreak havoc on the Patriots defense. He wants to do that end zone dance big time. He is jacked up for this game.
Well,
He's the best wide receiver in the NFL without a doubt. Who's the wide receiver for the Patriots? Who's the kid who's a wide receiver?
Oh, you're talking about the lacrosse player, Chris Hogan?
Is he the wide receiver? Is he one of the wide receivers?
Yeah, Chris Hogan and Julian Edelman. Maybe
Edelman. That's what I'm thinking of. Edelman. Yeah. Edelman. He's fantastic, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This is going to be interesting, but it better not be a blowout. Don't you hate it when the games are blowouts? Remember the Patriots? Was it last year or the year before when the Patriots had lost the game? Basically, they were on the 1 yard line.
That was 2 years ago, the Patriots and the Seahawks.
That was one of the most infuriating endings. Remember? Tom Brady was just basically totally depressed because he was going to lose. And then they botched it. They were 1 yard.
Yeah, it was the Seattle Seahawks were pretty much at the goal line. All they had to do was run it into the end zone. Would have been a touchdown, game over. Seahawks would have won. And for whatever reason, they decided, you know what? We're going to pass the football. Russell Wilson drops back, throws into the end zone.
One of the dumbest decisions in Super Bowl history. That was one of the dumbest decisions. And how about Brady jumped about 10 feet in the air? Remember, he looked, he was like, you've got to be kidding. They threw that ball, jumped about 10 feet in the air, and the game was over. 855-40-LAURA. I have taken my kids out of the room for the Super Bowl halftime show. We do watch the Puppy Bowl. We do love the Puppy Bowl because I'm an animal person. And that they have so much fun watching that. Whoever came up with that idea, the Animal Planet runs it, but that was such a brilliant idea.
I have never watched the Puppy Bowl. What is the
It's
Puppy
just a
Bowl?
bunch of puppies that
running
roll around with a ball.
They're just running around.
And they do the play-by-play. Okay, and the collie number 4, he takes down Robert. Oh, and then they drops the ball. The puppies are just jumping on each other, but they do it in a funny way. It's cute for kids. They love it. It's better than watching someone jumping into bed with someone else in the Super Bowl halftime show where they're promoting the other Fox programming, which is nasty.
That is our question. Are you letting your kids watch
No.
the Lady Gaga halftime show?
No, and no.
I'm asking the
other people.
listeners.
Oh, okay.
We know you're going to be watching the animals frolic around.
I heard Maddie was rejected for the puppy bowl at her stage.
She's becoming the puppy bowl. We're just going to
kick her for the 2-point conversion.
Drop kick her through the goal.
That dog. Rebecca keeps messaging me that the dog is positively jubilant when you leave on a business trip. That dog has an extra spring in her step every time you leave town.
Because she's up on the My Pillow.
Yeah, it nuzzles. It's
now
up.
her pillow.
It's not my pillow becomes Maddie's pillow up on the bed, and then you come, then she pees right on that bed, right where you're supposed to sleep. 855-40-LAURA. We'll take a break. Super Bowl halftime show. What does it say about our country? What does it say about where we are? Do your kids or grandkids get to watch? We'll take a break. 855-40-LAURA. And General Mattis has a message to North Korea. Don't go away. Look, she actually has a pretty good voice. Have you heard her sing, like when she sings ballads, Raymond? She actually, I know no one compares to Ella she has a beautiful voice.
She has a strong voice.
Yeah.
It's you know.
She's talented. She always mucks it up with politics. I don't know why she feels like she needs to do that.
She's a provocateur.
Right.
It's somebody who's not total. Look,
she's the Milo of singing.
Yeah, or the Madonna of our age, where she's always reinventing the look. And now I have dreadlocks, and now I'm bald, and now
she arrived in the egg at that one award show.
And
she
the
was
meat
in an egg.
dress.
That's also stupid.
Yeah.
I'm just so sick of the stupidity. It's all dumb.
It's all play acting, though. She plays little roles.
Yes,
and, I mean, you don't know who she is. And that's why there's a kind of plastique quality, I think, to her music, because the gut doesn't ever get reached. It's just kind of filler. But she's a good singer, if you like that.
Adam in Arizona, line 1. Adam making a good point here. Adam, go ahead.
Laura?
Yes.
Laura, I love football. It's my favorite sport. It's lost its soul. The halftime show is just a political and cultural nightmare. My point is that unlike baseball, go to a Yankee game, 7th inning, you're going to sing, God bless America. And football should return to the basics. It's patriotic.
I agree.
Especially during the Super Bowl. Especially during the Super Bowl. It's an opportunity to really show,
America, unity.
So that's my point.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I've sort of done the celebritification of everything. Everything's a part of the attainment and entertainment complex. This is football. And I think that's an excellent point. Make it about the U.S. military. They'll do the flyover and that kind of thing. They'll bring the military out to hold the flag, and they'll do the NFL does do a tribute to the military, which is nice. But I agree with you. I think it should be patriotic music, patriotic songs. Again, if we had an entertainment industry that reflected the heartland of America instead of reflected more of the radical, twisted, left-wing vision of America, then it would be a different deal. But with the exception of a few in the country music business, and even the country music people are now susceptible to all the pressure to be left-wing. I don't know. It has ruined it a little bit.
I hate the politicization of football. And
Despise
remember
it.
Meryl Streep saying, if it wasn't for us, there'd only be football and martial arts for America. Well, you know
Mixed
what?
martial arts.
Football was one of the few non-political areas where we could come together in true unity.
Yeah.
That now is even fractured and
I
endangered.
despise that. I hate that. You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show. We'll continue to take your Super Bowl comments. For whom are you rooting, and what about these halftime disasters? David Martosco is going to join us from the Daily Mail. News about the Paris attack coming up. And this just broke. The Treasury Department published a list of 13 individuals and 12 entities facing new restrictions, some for contributing to the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, and others for links to terrorism. Ahead of the announcement, Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif said, quote, Iran is unmoved by threats as we derive security from our people. He later added, we will never use our weapons against anyone except in self-defense. Joining us now to talk all the machinations in the Trump White House, all the reports of leaks and people taking other people's offices and all the intrigue, is our friend David Martosco, who is the U.S. political editor for the Daily Mail. David, great to talk to you. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Trump and foreign policy. Everyone's focused on the immigration deal lately and that kind of hot button stuff. But some interesting movements here. You had Trump during the campaign talking about Russia as potential ally and fighting ISIS. Then we had Nikki Haley yesterday come out and, we're doing more saber rattling against Russia. And then yet today on the Iran front, they seem to have put Iran on notice and actually taken action.
Well, it's funny because if you look back at the recent history of the things Trump has been telling the people around him about both Russia and Iran, he's been all over the map. There's a kind of a common kind of parlor game theory in Washington that holds that Trump takes action based on the most recent advice he's been given, not necessarily the best advice. So it's like the last voice in the room sounds the loudest to him, and then he says, oh, that sounds good. But then 5 minutes later, somebody gives him a countervailing argument, and then he says, oh, that sounds good. And so it's the game inside the West Wing has become to get to Trump at the last possible moment before he reaches a decision point, because that's when you can influence him. So I honestly don't know right now what his honest thinking is on Iran, on Russia, because it changes so often. Even on this business with Israeli settlements. I mean, last year in the campaign, I think I was the first one to actually ask him about Israeli settlements in an interview last year, and he told me flatly, "Oh, they should not stop. There should never be a pause. They're getting missiles lobbed at them. And then over time, it's not like that position morphed gradually into where he wound up yesterday.
All of a sudden, it's stop the settlement.
It's like, boom. It's like, okay, what the heck? He just schedules a trip with Netanyahu to come over. He just goes way out of his way to position himself as the best friend Israel's ever had, and all of a sudden, kaboom. Now, I guarantee you this is not the Steve Bannon wing of the West Wing influencing him. Okay, Bannon is a Zionist. He loves the idea of an expansionist Israel. But there are other folks in the West Wing who are nudging Trump in a different direction.
Like who? Because clearly, it seems that from everything I've heard, Steve Bannon and Jared Kushner are very close and have gotten closer over the last several months.
The three legs of the stool in the West Wing are Steve and Jared and Reince Priebus. Priebus carries the water for the establishment RNC wing of what's going on in the White House. He's the one who brought in Sean Spicer from the RNC. He's the guy who's leaning on, on behalf of Mike Pence's circle of influence to bring those people into the West Wing when the staffing was being done. So if you see something that looks, from Trump that looks like he's retrenching in the direction of being moderate or squishy, you could almost be sure it's Reince Priebus putting his thumb on Trump's scale. Because especially with Israel, Jared's not on board with this. I guarantee you Steve Bannon is absolutely apoplectic over it. But Reince Priebus's idea is, look, if you are going to broker a Middle East peace deal, you can't enter the arena, with a sword pointed at the Palestinians. And to be fair, Trump has said in the debates that, look, I'd like to start from a position of neutrality and make everybody believe that I'm open to listening to them. Mm-hmm. But this seems to me like a bridge too far. It's
and then I've heard
it's such a dramatic flip-flop.
What's interesting, I've heard a countervailing argument, though, that the person who has the most influence and power in the West Wing is Jared Kushner. That despite Reince being the chief of staff, Kushner still holds the most sway over Donald Trump. And if Kushner doesn't want something to happen, it usually doesn't happen.
Well, the problem recently with that, and generally speaking, I think you're right, especially when it comes to Middle Eastern things, where Jared's been tapped very publicly with, being sort of a special envoy for Middle East peace. But recently, Jared has been, the last few days, Jared has spent a little bit less time in the West Wing. He's done some personal family things, I'm made to understand. And so his absence, just his situational absence, I think provided an opening for Priebus and a few other people to push Trump in a different direction. These things can be very situational. Mm-hmm. And unless you're kind of listening with your ear to the ground and have your own spies inside the West Wing, you can, it's really easy to just think that there's some grand policy shift because they've thought it through. As we've seen with this White House, a lot of times they're not thinking it through. They're not, everybody gives them so much credit for playing 8-dimensional chess and playing 3 moves ahead. Oftentimes they're not. That's what concerns me, just generally speaking, as an American. I don't think they're strategically playing the tape forward very well. I mean, look what they did with the rollout of the travel pause. They didn't think through what the implications would be of words on the page and how few people knew what they were. it's problematic. I mean, as a journalist and as a former professional communicator, it bothers me. They're running out of toes to shoot off.
Do you think that there will be a shift, David, ultimately in these various, power enclaves inside the West Wing? I mean, I worked for Reagan in the last 2 years of the administration, and I saw that happening even when I was 22 and watching, all the various factions work it out. Some survived, some didn't. But do you see this as the way it just will be, or will this ultimately have to change because it's, in your estimation, it sounds like slightly chaotic and unpredictable?
Truthfully, I don't pretend to know. I wouldn't want to guess at that because everything in this administration is so different. It breaks the mold and nothing sort of follows from, recent history teaches us nothing about what's going to happen in this White House. It's possible that somebody might reach a breaking point and take their marbles and go home and sway power one direction or another. It's also possible everybody could dig in deeper and entrench, and there could be a lot of fistfights back there.
I'm talking about people being fired. I'm not talking about people willingly leaving. I'm talking about people being removed from their position of power.
I don't see that happening. Look, Trump has got to maintain his relationships with Capitol Hill, so he's got to keep the Priebus wing around because that's the establishment squishy center. And the Paul Ryans and Mitch McConnells of the world like having Brian.
Yeah, I'm talking about a year from now. I'm not talking about tomorrow. I'm talking about as time goes on after the first 100 days. And Reagan had a big shift after year one. Yeah. I mean, there was just a lot of people moving in and out of the West Wing, and things weren't all that stable.
I think that's normal.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't want to predict why it might happen or who might, sharpen the knife.
I have to say, when you think about what Trump has done, just the policy when it comes to the pause on the refugees and forget the rollout, but just the substance of what he's doing, the financial deregulation, meeting with the various people he's brought in to consult with, the union meeting, the TPP withdrawal. If you're a conservative, maybe the exception of the trade stuff, I don't see how you're not happy with what Trump's done so far. I mean, on pretty much every issue that he either campaigned on or that is important to the country, he has good forward momentum. He has got to do the tax reform with the Hill. He's got to work on the Obamacare unraveling. That's really important. But my goodness, I've been around this town for 25 years. I've never seen someone do more in such a short period of time than I've seen this administration do. And I think it's really hard to do a lot. Maybe it's a little too fast, but as a conservative, I mean, we had a lot of foot dragging in other Republican administrations, and I think I got to say, communications or rollout notwithstanding, I think a lot of the substance is actually pretty good. I mean, really good.
Well, I agree. If you're a conservative, you look at this and you're like, holy smokes, he's doing what he said he was going to do. Everything kind of lines up with why I voted for him. If anybody really thought he was going to repeal and replace Obamacare on day one, I think they were living in this poetry world of campaigning. But if anybody had told you that 2 weeks in he would have done all this stuff and actually done it, I remember when Mitt Romney was running before he kind of collapsed at the end. There was a group of lawyers, sort of regulatory experts and all that, and sort of historical people with experience in the Reagan and Bush administrations, who were putting together this raft of about 100 executive orders. They were sort of vetting them internally, and the idea was to have this completely fast shock and awe blitz of executive orders on day one. If Romney had won, they were literally going to sign 20 of them on the first day, like on Inauguration Day. And, of course, best laid plans, it all kind of fell apart. But ultimately what I heard from inside Romney world was that he never had any intention of actually doing it. He was kind of listening and taking counsel and telling everybody he was going to do this shock and awe thing just so he could have
he came across as a phony. He came across as a phony to most people. I'll just be brutally honest. He didn't seem real.
But now in contrast, here's a guy who's doing what he said he would do. I don't even know what to make of this. And I saw 250 of his rallies as a journalist sort of covering him, and I sat there and listened to all this stuff saying, well, yeah, he's like everybody else. He's making
promises. Yeah, you didn't like Trump, right, David? You didn't like Trump. You didn't like Trump.
What do you mean I didn't like Trump?
You didn't really like Trump, right, from the beginning?
That's not true at all.
I'm just kidding you. The Daily Mail did some of the best reporting on Trump. You guys were at every event. I'm just teasing you. Daily Mail was at like every event and actually showing pictures of what the crowds look like going in, going out, and at the rallies.
I actually talked to probably 1,000 of them over the space of the campaign. At the very beginning, it was just me and Bob Costa from the Post covering him, and it was very easy to get time with him because nobody thought he was serious. Nobody thought it was a carnival act. It was like, oh, if you're not an entertainment reporter, why talk to him?
Mm-hmm.
But we were very, very fortunate that we got in on the ground level with Trump, and at the beginning, you could literally call Hope Hicks and say, hey, can I see him backstage? And she would literally show you to his dressing room, close the door behind her, and say, have fun, boys, and just leave you alone with him for 20 minutes. It was insane.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine that now?
Those were the days.
But, and then that, you parlay that into interviews in the office, and you ride on the plane, you just kind of get close to him. And then because you're close to him, you get a sense of the complete person.
Mm-hmm.
You see him away from the campaign shtick, from the rally shtick, and you get to see him in a room with just you and him, or four or five people, and you get to see the sort of contemplative, thoughtful,
yeah, he's interesting,
a little bit intellectually curious side of it. I mean, I'll give you an example of sort of how his mind works. I'm sitting in his office once, middle of 2015, and it was very early on. People were asking a wide variety of questions, just kind of pin him down, see who he was. So I asked him a question about repatriating offshore money and the tax rates. And I said, well, what's the right tax rate to charge people to bring back these trillions of dollars? It can't be 38% and it can't be 0. What's the right number? And he looked at me and said, David, I have no idea, but I know who knows. So he picked up the phone, called his secretary, said, get so-and-so in here. In walks this sort of bespectacled lawyer, everything but the green eye shade, he's kind of a numbers, a tax lawyer. He says, David, ask him that question. So I said, what's the right number? And he said, well, we've actually thought this through, and the right number is 10.166%, but we'll round it down to 10%, and here's why. And he explained it. I was like, okay, fine, thank you. The guy leaves, and Trump looks at me. Now, I'm gonna expurgate one of the words here, but he says, David, how effing cool is that? We just learned something today, both of us, and I hired that guy 8 years ago. How cool is that?
That's neat. Well, it's so much for not being,
he was rejoicing in the casting of it. He was giddy and gleeful because he was able to be a good manager and think, forward and all that stuff. That's the kind of stuff you see, and that's the kind of stuff that influences the coverage and makes me write like he's not a carnival barker, because he's not.
People were focusing on the fact that he was teasing Schwarzenegger at the beginning of the prayer breakfast, and you just don't do that at the prayer breakfast. You don't talk about ratings.
Schwarzenegger was in on it. I think honestly,
that was
I really
planned.
honestly believe that it's planned, and the idea is to get Schwarzenegger some ink and get people more curious about The Apprentice again. And I think it's a put-up job.
Why don't we switch jobs? Yeah, Schwarzenegger got the better. He got the better of the deal at the end for sure. But that helps The Apprentice. That helps The Apprentice. Helps Burnett.
Does, which is the only reason he would do it.
Yeah. David, loved having you on. Come back soon. We didn't even get into the horrific Paris developments that the Daily Mail's all over, but we're reading your coverage, and as always, thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll take a break on the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA.